Hey everyone, welcome to Data Millennials. I'm Atul, and in this video we are going to see how we can create and customize area chart in Google Data Studio. So we will be creating this area chart which you can see on your screen from scratch. But before we go ahead and start creating the area chart, let's first discuss what exactly is the area chart and how it can be useful in your dashboard. So an area chart is a variation of line or time series chart. It uses shaded areas, which you can see over here under the plotted lines on the graph, to indicate the volume of data represented by the lines. Like a time series, area charts are useful for seeing how your data trend is over a period of time or a period of a specific time frame. As you can see over here, area chart lets you visualize a single dimension or the breakdown dimension and a single matrices plotted over a specific period of time. So let's go and create a simple area chart in Looker. So the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on this edit button so that I can get into edit mode of this Looker report. And then I'm going to add a page so that I can show you how you can create this area chart from scratch. So let's copy this header first and put it over here. Now, in order to select an area chart, the first thing that you will need is a data source. Once you have your data source, then you can go and add a chart option over here in your navigation panel and select area chart under this area section. So let's click over here. Once you click that, then you can add that area chart anywhere on your Studio or Looker page. Now by default, Looker will add some dimension as well as some of the matrices value for you to get started with your area chart. But what we are going to do is that we are going to see each and every options that is available over here in setup as well as in style. Okay, so the first option over here in the setup is a data source. So a data source provides a connection between the component and the underlying data. Suppose if you have already loaded your data on Looker and then you have created this chart, then you do not need to add data source. But suppose you have not added any data source and you want to add a chart, or you have multiple data source and you want to add a chart, then what you can do over here is that you can come to data source, click over here, you can select any of the data source which is available over here, or you can click on add a data source, then go to Google connector, select any of these connectors and add your data source onto Looker. Now once your data source has been added, then the next option over here in style is the date range dimension. This option appears if your data source has a valid date dimension. Then only this will select the column in which your correct date format value is present in your data source. For example, in my data source I have a date column, and this date column is by default selected by Looker in the date range dimension. Now the next option that we have over here is dimension, and this dimension is here actually the time dimension. So you can say that for area chart the dimension should always be a time dimension. A time dimension provides a time-based x-axis for your chart. The data type for this dimension determines the level of the time series. For example, to visualize the daily data, you have to use the date data type with full year, month and day. To group the data by calendar, for example as a quarter, then you have to change the data type to the year quarter. Now the next option which is over here is the drill down. So this option appears on chart that supports it. This means that the area chart supports the drill down option. So if you select this drill down option, then by default you will see that Looker has provided year, month and date. So you will only be able to drill down for the year, month and a specific date. So let's keep this option off for us right now. Now the another option that we have under setup is breakdown dimension. This breakdown dimension displays the metric data broken down according to the selected dimension. For example, a chart showing annual sales could be broken down by a sales region dimension. For example, if you have country code over here, then I can show the dimension breakdown in the country wise. So the next option, and one of the most important option, is the metric. This metric measures the things contained in the dimension and provide the numeric scale and the data series for the chart. You have to note that metrics are aggregation that comes from the underlying data. So let's select the metric value as the number of items sold in 1000. Okay. Now if I take you to my data which I am using over here for area chart data, in my Google Sheet you can see we have country code and we have number of items sold on a daily basis. So we have plotted the graph using this date, using this country and the number of items sold as metrics. This date is our x-axis value, and this country, using this country and this number of items sold, we have plotted it over here. For each country you can see that the area has been plotted. Now if you have any optional matrices, you can add over here by selecting this optional matrix, and you can add another matrix over here. But as we do not have any other metric, so we will not be using this. But there is a interesting option of metric slider. So if I select this one, you will see that nothing changes in this graph except this button, which is metric slider. Now if you click on it, then your user or you will have an option to select the values based on a range of the metrics. Now if I want to select or show the data in my graph where the number of sold item is between 5 and 50, then I can select from here only, and my entire graph will start reflecting data based on the selection. And if you have not cleared it, then it will be the by default selection for every user unless they go and click on this metric slider and clear it or change the range. Now the next option that we have over here is the default date range. As you can see, we have date, and if you want to change the default date range, then you can click on custom and then you can select a date range. Within this date range you will have multiple options. For example, fixed date. If you select fixed date, then you will show data based on the fixed date range which you have selected over here. Okay, so for example, if I have selected 1st January 2023 to 31st January 2023, and if I click on apply, then you will see that if my data has these dates, then the graph will represent these dates over here in x-axis and the data will be plotted over there. So it's always suggested that based on your requirement you can go through these options and select the best useful case scenario for your dashboard. But what I would suggest is that you should always keep it as auto, because it will allow your user to select date or data based on their requirement. They can go back to the n number of months in past and see the data trend. Now the last option over here is the filter. If you want to apply a filter on this graph, then you can click on add a filter, and then you have to click on create a filter, which will take us to this section, and you can put the name of filter, and you can apply a filter by including or excluding a particular column's value using the condition equal to, contains, starts with, regular expression match, regular expression contain, in or is null. So if you want to exclude or include a particular value in your graph, then you can use this filter over here. So as we are not going to use any filter, so I have removed that filter option, and let's go back. Now the next thing within this area chart is the style section. So currently if I click on view, you will be able to see the area chart, and you can understand that this chart or this area is for India, while this area is for Bahrain, which is BH, right? And IN is India. Let's make this graph a little bit of more beautiful, and we can beautify a particular chart or graph by going into the style section. So the first option within this style section is the chart area. This chart area section controls the overall appearance and layout of your chart. So the first option is the show stack, When it is checked, it stacked the data series basically upon one to other. Okay, now the next option that we have is show cumulative. When we check this, the data series are summed over time, otherwise the data is shown with no additional aggregation. So this accumulation will make sense if we want to see how the things are going on and the values is getting added for each and every day for the previous n number of days. Now the next option that we have is show points. It displays the individual data points. Viewers can put their mouse over a data point to display its value. So let me go and click to view and see over here. If I put my mouse over here, then I can see the values. Okay. Now the next option within style is show data label. So it displays the individual values for the data point in the series. Now the next option below this show data label is compact number. So you have to turn on this show label, data label, to see this option. If you uncheck this, then you won't be able to see this compact number option. And if I select this, then this compact number option appears. And what this compact number does for us, that it will round the number and display the unit indicator into a compact number. If you have 5000, then what will happen over here is that instead of 5 3 times 0, it will show 5k. Now the next option that we have is decimal precision. So this decimal precision, you have to turn off the show data label, then only you will be able to see this decimal precision. So this decimal precision sets the number of decimal places in the matrices. So if I select 2, you will see that you have 2 decimal precision over here. But as our data doesn't have decimal points, so let's keep it as 0 or auto. Now the next option that we have is number of series. It determines the number of secondary dimension series shown in the chart. If the number of series selected is less than the number of series in your chart, over here 10, I have 2, so all the series are showing, right? Now if I select this to 1, then you will see that only one series is appearing in my chart. The first value is appearing over here and the another value is not appearing over here. So if you have a series of 10, 15, 20, then you can show till 20 series on a particular area chart. Now the next option that we have under style is color by. So this section controls how your data is colored. The first option over here is series order, and if you click on this series order, you will see that this option lets us use the current theme to the color the data accordingly to its position in the chart. Okay, this option emphasizes the ranking of the data over the identity of the data. We can set specific colors using each data series color picker. For example, for my first series, which is India, I can select any other color. For example, I can select red. And then for another series, which is Bahrain, I can select black color. So this series order will help us to select color based on each of the data series. Now the next option within this color by is dimension value. If I select this dimension value, then what Looker will do is that it will choose the colors for each dimension value in the chart with the color specified in the dimension value color map. And you can see the color map over here, and for each of the values the color has been mapped. This option ensures that your data uses color consistently regardless of the position of the data in the chart. Now the next option over here is reference line. If you want to compare your values against a particular reference line, then you can add a reference line over here, and then your user will be able to compare each of these two matrices value lines against that specific reference line. You have to give type over here, and then you have to give the value, and then you have to set on which axis do you want to put that reference line, and then you have to give a label for that reference line. So for us, we do not have any reference to compare it. We are not going to put any reference line over here. Then the next option within the style is missing data. Before we go ahead to the missing data, let's change it to series order, the color that we have selected, right? It looks much better. Okay, So we were talking about the missing data option. So this missing data option appears when your time dimension is missing data. Looker Studio offers 3 ways of dealing with this situation. You have to note that this option has no effect on the bar series. Line to zero option will affect a trend line, however, based on the 3 ways of dealing it. The first one is line to zero. When you select this option, a line series will drop to 0 for the missing dates. And this is the default option. The second option that we have is line break. When this option is selected, missing data appears as a break in the data series. As you can see, we have all the data points for all the dates, so there is no line break. But for example, if I go back over here and if I remove 9th from here in my raw data, okay, let me copy and paste it as value and put it as date and remove these 2 dates for 9. Okay, and let's go and refresh the data for this graph. Then ideally what should happen is that for 9th of January we should see the missing data appearing as a break in the data series. We will have a break over here. Okay, let's refresh it. Now, as I have told you that when you select line break over here for missing data, then the missing data will appear as a break in the data series for that specific date. Let's go and select this line to zero. Then what we discussed about line to zero was that a line series will drop to 0 for the missing dates. Similarly, the third option that we have over here is linear interpolation. When this option is selected, Looker Studio will continue the series by connecting the data points on either side of the missing data. Okay, so for 9th, it has basically connected the data points for the next date. So most often we do not use linear interpolation unless somebody asks us to do it based on their requirement, but usually we use line to zero, okay, for missing data because it looks visually appealing as compared to line break. Okay, now if we go ahead to our axis, then we can see that these option controls the display of the chart axis title and scales. A right y-axis section appear when you have more than one matrix in your chart. But as I do not have more than one metric in my chart, so right y-axis section will not appear. So the first option over here is show axis. It shows or hides the axis chart basically. Now the next option over here is that reverse y-axis direction. It controls the vertical display of the y-axis. Then we have reverse x-axis direction. It controls the horizontal display of x-axis. Then the next option within style is left y-axis, and within this we have this show title axis. It will show or hide the label of the axis. Then within this left y-axis we have axis minimum, axis maximum and custom hatch mark interval. So for minimum axis we can say that it sets the minimum value for y-axis. This axis maximum sets the maximum value for y-axis. This option sets or control the interval between the axis ticks over here. Then we have log scale. It makes your y-axis scale logarithmic. Similarly, for x-axis we have the same options over here. And then we have this grid option. So these option controls the look of the chart grid over here. The first option that we have is a chart grid axis color. If you want to change the grid axis color, you can select the axis color over here. Then the next option that we have is the grid color. It sets the color of the grid line, but most often we just want this entire grid line to be transparent, so that's why we can select the grid as transparent from here. The next option that we have within this grid is this font axis size. You can change the font axis size from here. Then you can change the label font size from here. If you want to change the chart background within this border, then you can change it from here. And if you want to change the color of this border, not this one, you can change it from here. So let's keep it as green. Okay. Now the next option that we have over here is for legend. These options determine the placement of the chart legend, which is over here. The first option is none, so no legend will appear if you select this. The next option is right. The legend will appear on the right hand side. Then the next option is bottom. The legend will appear on the bottom of your chart. The last option is top. The legend will appear on the top of your chart. Then we have alignment. It sets the alignment of the legend relative to the selected position. If you select left, then your legend will be on the left hand side. If you select center, then your legend will be on the centers of the chart. And if you select right, then the legend will move to the right hand side of your chart. So let's keep left, or let's keep center. Then we have max line. It sets the number of lines used by the legends. If the number of series require more lines, then overflow item can be displayed by clicking on this up or down. So suppose you have 10 series of data and it's not displaying it over here correctly, then you can increase the number of lines from here. Now the next option, or you can say most importantly, the last option of the chart style is background and border. So let's discuss about the background first. It sets the chart background color. If you want to change the chart background color, you can select it from here. So let's select something like this or some other color. This one, yeah. Then after this background color, we have this border radius. It adds the rounded border to the chart background. When the radius is 0, the background shape has 90-degree corners, and when the border radius of 100-degree produces a circular shape. So if I select 100, you will see that it's a circular shape over here. Okay. The next option that we have is opacity. It sets the chart opacity. 100% of opacity completely hide object behind the chart, and 0% will make the chart invisible. So it's always suggested to keep the chart opacity either at 90% or at 100%. Now the next option that we have over here is the border color. If you want to change the border color for this border, then you can select from here. Okay. Then we have this border weight over here. It sets the chart border line thickness. So if I select 4, you will see that the thickness has increased, right? And the last option is the border style. It sets the chart border line style. So you have 4 options over here: solid, dashed, dotted, and double. So let's keep dashed for a change over here, right? Now if I go to view, then you will be able to see an area chart which we have created from scratch and customize it based on our requirement. So before we say bye and close this video, let's go to our data and undo the changes that we had done. Okay, and let's refresh the data over here so that we'll have values for 9th January also. Okay, so this is how basically you can create and customize area chart in Looker or Google Data Studio. Happy learning and see you in the next video.